Hello, everyone. Today is Friday again, 9 o'clock UK time, and we are live again in Reality Talks with Alexander Ermenkov. Today, my dear guest is Michael Danielson. As we were speaking just minutes ago, his name is exactly like the Archangel Michael.
Yes.
Yeah. So nice to meet you. I went the last week. We just friends in Facebook from a very short time, but I was very impressed from the way you are posting in your Facebook, and almost all the month of November you are posting different posts about Jesus, God, different things. And I saw the previous month you were posting a lot about personal development. Then you had some things about Indian religion. So I'm very really impressed to understand, are you into personal development? Are you just a spiritual person? Are you mixing all these things? Are you merging them? So what is exactly your expression in reality, so to say?
Okay. Yeah, my expression of reality. That's a big question, but I'll try to break it down here. Actually, I work as a security manager at a steel mill for my work, but I also am a coach as well, and I help people going through midlife crisis. So something I do part time, not full time. I'm just starting out with that, but definitely my life is centered around spirituality, and actually, Christian is what I would say. That's it's Jesus. Obviously, you see my background. So, and I think of Jesus as the actual way that in a Christian view, like actually Jesus as the way, the truth, and the life, the actual Son of God. And like a little bit, I bring other things into that, but it's really from that perspective. I try to mold that into what I'm doing because a lot of times we think we're just the body and we're here to do everything for the body. We're supposed to get a nicer house, more things for the body, but we're also a soul. And that's the part of us that's eternal. I mean, you have the body with it as well. I believe that body will be reunited with the soul afterwards. There'll be a reconstituted body, but that's a lot of times where I think we lose sight of that, and we kind of keep up with the Joneses, and I think that gets us in trouble, and we get off track.
Yeah. Have you actually been Christian all of your life, or did you
No,
convert it?
no, actually, and it's kind of strange because I'm transitioning more from. I was very much into, as you want to call it, New Age spirituality. Thinking that in the context of everything is God, everything is part of that. And actually, that left me really in a place where a very bad place. It took me to where, and as at the end, I'm like, it just doesn't make sense. I am a finite being with a finite mind. How can I be all that is? To me, that's very egotistical. That's very saying that I'm on the level of God. And to me, God is in the world. God is being itself, but God can also does not rely on being. You can have God without God can forget about all of this and still exist. But I can't do that. I'm a finite creature. I will die. I will have a meeting with my maker at some point. So actually, and that's what actually led me to that. So it's actually interesting, like some of my posts, because I actually get into this. I said, and started going to a dark place. And I said, God, show me the right way. Show me the truth, the actual truth as it is. I don't care if it's painful. I don't care what it is. Show me the truth. And that actually led me to fully Christ. That's that we're led me to that. So yeah. But I've been interested in spirituality, philosophy my whole life, but actually this led me to the actual Christian perspective. But no, I've definitely not been Christian. Actually, I started out atheist, as a matter of fact, for many, many years. And it's got to a point where it's too painful. I tried, pursuing the pleasure, hedonism, going for the sex, going for this, and everything led me to nowhere. It was like I was getting boxed in by God saying, you can try all that, but you're gonna come back to me. And that's where I'm at now. So,
And from how long you are focused specifically on Christianity as the core of your expression?
the core, not very long, honestly. I was baptized Christian, but I went away from that Lutheran, and I actually went away from that for a long time. And because my mind very intellectual, I'm always thinking about things, and I'm like, well, there's some point out contradictions in the Bible. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's right. But then after that, I looked at it and I'm like, and then I did further research, and there's so much evidence for the actual New Testament. Now, Old Testament, so I don't know the biblical evidence for that, but no. So that's actually, but I would say Christ has been part of my life for 2 years, but to be like actually in it as my full expression, probably about, as you see on my Facebook post, probably about a month and a half, honestly.
So actually, from a month and a half, you are more fixed on the Christianity point of view.
Yes. And that's
And
when I felt God to, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. Go ahead.
have you listened to this Doreen Virtue? I have it in my
Yes.
YouTube friends.
Yeah.
You know her.
I know her.
Yeah. So basically, I'm a Christian from 17-year-old. Before this, I was a normal boy, teenager. I never wanted to have anything with God. I've heard about some old person that is maybe God or something like this. And I'm from Bulgaria. It's Eastern European country. And in the 1990s, we had a lot of missionaries coming from America, speaking about God and so on, basically evangelical Christianity.
Mhm.
And my mother and my sister started to go to a specific evangelical church influenced by American Christianity. And I said, no, I'm not interested. They say, but come, you'll see, it's so interesting. People are dancing. It's like going into the disco club. There is no difference. There's so much beautiful girls there. And I said, no, sorry, I don't need this. I can go into the disco club. It's 100% the same. I don't want your God, and so on and so on. And then it happened so that one night I was very drunk. And maybe for the first time I was so drunk. He's 17 years old, and I was going back to my home in the night, and I got afraid that I'm going to die, because I was unconscious for maybe 5-6 hours. And then in the middle of the evening, I tried to go back home. And I decided, okay, maybe I'll try to pray to this God that my mother and my sister were speaking to me about. And I said, okay, if you exist, you need to help me right now, because I'm 100% devastated. And immediately when I prayed, special taxi came. I didn't know that this taxi existed. It brought me to home, and it was Saturday. And the next morning I woke them up in the morning. I said, okay, let's go to this church to try what it's all about, because I had some experience. And from this moment forward, I became a Christian. But I had a secular background, so I'm not so interested anyhow in Christianity. And long term, I was the first arguing I had with God. Maybe I need to write a book later, Arguing with God. I said, why? Actually, I need to know that you exist so early. I'm just 17 years old. I just want to test life, to try everything. And maybe when I became 50 or 40, now I'm 48, then you can decide to show me that you exist or whatever. I'm too early for this. I want to live my life, and later on, maybe I can try this spirituality or whatever. Now it's too early for me. And the second arguing I had was with prayers. Why should I pray? I don't understand the reason of prayer and so on. Then I was long-term discovering so many things, trying to understand. And anyhow, I've been Christian for a lot of time in my life. I came to the position maybe after I got married and I have kids. I decided that actually Christianity is something very hidden. It is very sacred. It is very for yourself only, and all the other people to do whatever they want with their lives. You are not interested in this. One day you have a secure place. So the most important thing is one day where you are going to be, your direction and so on. And during COVID time, I, for first time, was get acquainted to the personal development. I didn't know if this is a new age or not new age. I mean, I don't classify it. The only thing I knew before this was this guy, Tony Robbins. I didn't like him a lot. My wife was trying to promote it for me. I said, no, this is not for me. But anyhow, the first thing I noticed is why these people look so like it's a church meeting, why they look so happy. Is it true? Is it not? I know a lot about how people are expressing, quite so similar. Anyhow, I asked the guy when he was selling a program, a specific program, and I said, okay, is it something that is good for Christians? Is it something like a religion? Because I already have a religion. I don't need another religion. He said, no, this is something that is okay, suitable for Christians and so on. I went to a 6-month program It is called Elite Mentorship Forum with one personal development guy called Peter Sage. I don't know if you've heard of him. It doesn't matter, but you've heard about him.
Yes.
Yeah. And I went through his transformational program. The first thing I said, well, I don't know what is this guy. I'm actually not interested in the person, even if it's a donkey, it's said in the Bible. If I can find the truth there, I don't care about a donkey or a person. I want to see if I can extract something. So during these 6 months, I was arguing almost every argument that he has. Of course, till today, I endorse him. We work together. I'm selling his program, but long term, I'm developing my merging between my understanding about the faith and how religion can actually help you in the real life. Of course, what is the difference between what you say, the new age and all these things that are leading you astray, because there's so much misconception, and where is actually the middle path, which really can give you an existence that is 100% aligned with the source of creation and with God itself. And of course, I have some friends that were Christians and they follow Moji or some other guys, and they believe very strongly that God is the universe or everything is depersonalized and so on and so on. I debate a lot with different type of people. But yeah, anyhow, I found a new way of discovering and understanding God through realizing that it's not very important just to look at the surface, to look, for example, at Jesus, what he's telling only, or how the Bible is written, but what is even beyond the words. Of course, I cannot identify myself as agnostic because I also don't like it. I'm actually a man of paradoxes. I even created my own book called Paradoxes of Life, Unanswered Questions to Humanity, because what I realized that actually there are so many things that are unanswered. Yes, in the Bible, they are written as definitions, how some things like, but you need to experience them and to realize and understand, okay, why I need to pray, what exactly I'm doing with my intent, and so on and so on. And maybe for the last 2-3 years, I'm going into this direction. I created my own personal program, which is called Ruling Reality Basics, which is a program that is, according to me, not positioned as a personal development program, because for me, the big intention is long-term, the human being to understand what is his ultimate strategic positioning and how the human being is to be aligned with its creator, because this is what the Bible is speaking about through a lot of different knowledge. But I am willing, of course, to explore much more your experience, because you are coming from the opposite direction to me. So it is going to be very interesting also to know your opinion and knowledge.
Sure. And I think the one thing we got to be careful of is, like, spirits come to us. There are spirits that don't have our best interest in mind, and even warn about that in the Bible. They say that this spirit is not for me, the Holy Spirit, and you attest it by using the name of Jesus. Now, if they say the name of Jesus and then it withdraws from you, then that means that's not the true spirit. And
yeah, I understand. For example, I don't like personally Joe Dispenza. A lot of people around me like him, but when I see what he's doing, I 100% cannot agree. But anyhow, he's even endorsing and speaking about the Holy Spirit or whatever. It's a lot of merging between biblical labels. But of course, the beautiful thing, according to me, is that every human being, there is put some specific thing that can help him to recognize the truth to some extent. Of course, the mind is very delusional. We are very easily led astray. Even the heart, to some extent, is very delusional. So what I've learned from my experience in the last 2-3 years, and what actually the Bible long-term endorses, is to everything to be validated through reality. That's why I decided that long-term, I will position myself as a ruling reality coach, because whatever you're speaking, whatever you are claiming, if it's not possible to be validated through the real physical materiality, it doesn't matter.
I understand that perspective, and that's what they said that Pope John Paul II said that actually there's two wings. There's faith and reason. And there's nothing that's Christian, if you actually have the Christian faith completely, there's nothing that contradicts the reality that we're in. It's just saying that we have a higher purpose. We are pilgrims here. This is not our destination. And if we get caught up into this, caught up in the things of the world, and we start opening up that aspect, that leads on the dangerous roads. I'm not saying your own reality. I'd probably know a little bit more about that. But I think that, and also if you look at the Bible, they even said that they give the power to the apostles and to interpret it. It's scripture and tradition that we go forward with, that actually that we see things and actually it fleshes out, because God's still being here now. What's written in the word of that, like Jesus, that will never change. The way and the truth of life, that never, there's nothing in there that will ever change. But there is tradition that comes into that, and new light that comes as well. So, and that's where I fell into, I would call it false light. It was letting me into these paths. And at the end, I was like, why did I do all this for? I'm more depressed. I'm almost, I was to the point of suicidal. I'm like following this path, and I'm like, well, this is supposed to be, everything I'm hearing is, oh, you're supposed to have this, and then you go through this thing, and it's supposed to have growth and this personal development. And the bad thing, I'm switching gears a little bit, but the personal development world, they dig the hole and then give you the thing to get out of it. It's like, well, you're creating this, and then you're creating the problem. There wasn't even a personal development world till, I don't know, probably about 40 years ago. And now this is a thing. It's not a tangible thing. A lot of people put a lot more weight to something and more tangibility. They think it's concrete. These are all concepts. People create a concept and they add to this. Like I would, somebody show me a mental block. Like literally show me a mental block. The only block I know is a brick you put on your house. That's a block. And that's become a term. And it's like, well, break through your blocks, break through your blocks. Where'd you come up with that? What's this thing as that? And like law of attraction. Like what am I going to attract? I don't, and the dangerous thing that goes into there is that these false concepts go into there, and it's actually, there's a lot of negative in there, and actually do 100% believe in demons. They can attach themselves to you. So that's something that's.
But did you believe before this in demons?
I did. I did 100%. And
yeah. What was the label for them then?
Well, it's the same, demons. Yeah, that's the label, or spirit, you want to say it. And like I said, a lot of times they throw stuff on spiritual. Yeah, but okay, what does that mean? You can say you're spiritual, but what spirits are you communing with or whatever? That's where we got to be careful. That's why I think we're blind when we actually follow and we're guided by Christ, then we actually are not led astray.
And actually, how much money have you spent in personal development? Because I've heard people spending $250,000. Personally, I have spent something like $30,000, but it's personal development plus business leadership development. So I have extracted a lot of value, but for me, the Christian core was very important to not go into this chasing of spirituality, because I already have what I want. So I was not so involved into this. But in your case, how much did you put and invested into these holes that you needed to fulfill, so to say?
Yeah, I would say probably for about a 5-year span, about 40K, but that's also training programs as well. Like I'm a trained hypnotherapist. I'm trained in instant change method, which is energy work, which I'm actually, it's good, but I would tweak it a little bit because I don't like it. I also open up the other aspect that I spoke about, the spirit not in the way that I understand it. And coaching, and being a coaching, something called Magnetic Mind program that I took a Peter Sage course too. So that's why I'm familiar with Peter Sage.
Oh, which one of Peter Sage?
The USM, or is it called, what's it called? Yeah, the Ultimate Self Mastery, yes. And actually, when I got into it, it really turned me off, quite honestly, because they were talking about, the quantum physics and the world all like gets into pantheism. They get in that direction of saying that God is just here in the world. Yeah, God is in the world as being, but he's also beyond it. So I lied a lot of.
It helped you, it provoked you, or it continued leading you astray?
Sure, I would say leading me astray, because I just put that to the side. I'm like, okay, I'll learn what I can from that. But I believe that he has good intentions, but I believe that he's very misguided in the spiritual aspects he adds into that. We start getting into that realm, and that's something that to me was like, no, that's not what I understand. That's not something revealed to me. But and I know you say you also work with him as well, so I'm not.
I work, I use some of the things, but it doesn't mean that I necessarily agree. What I like about him is that he's trying to do the things as much as possible into the fundamentals without putting labels, so that if you are a Christian, if you are a Buddhist, if you are Zen, if you are Muslim, you can still extract what you want, take it with you into your religious views, your religious beliefs. Then, of course, long term, there are some things that I don't 100% agree, and I'm continuing to developing my own ideas where they're really much more able to help people. To some very small extent, it is helping because he's not also endorsing the law of attraction type of thinking. He's not endorsing 100% this so-called by me thinking, where you are trusting 100% your own will to accomplish things. But of course, still, since it's not defined based on where you are coming from, you are entering again more deeply into the same place from where you come from. So it's a little bit tricky.
Yeah, I think it's one thing that I wish I would have kind of realized this, had insight or breakthrough before I got into this, is there's my will, which very limited, and then there's God's will. So we need to discern what's God's will for us and then move forward to that. And a lot of times that we're impatient. We want it to happen. So we look at this, at least in my journey. I can't speak for anybody else, but I'm sure I'm not alone in this. That we were saying that we want to get this certain way there, or we want to get away. Say we have a job we hate, or whatever the case may be. We kind of get into something and we're looking for an answer. We're looking for a shortcut to what it is. And there's our timing, and then there's God's time. And we're going to go by God's time, no matter how much we want to go over here. He's the one. He's outside of space and time, but that's another story. We can go to tangent on that, but yeah. So that's where I think that's where we cause ourselves a lot of pain. We try all these things, and most people, in my experience, what I've seen in personal development world, leads them to more pain because they're sold promises that are not fulfilled. And then they're like, well, I tried all this inner work, inner child work, reparenting. I've tried this. I don't have my results. So then they start thinking, I am broken. Why is this not working for you? At least my experience. I'm like, well, I must be broken because I've tried all these things. They promise all these things. And I see a few people that are having results. And then, of course, you know, the media we were now, social media, we think everybody's balling. They're all doing whatever. You think everybody's doing super well.
Yeah. I mean, it's something like it becoming like a universal religion.
Yeah.
All the famous people are in this. Everybody's speaking about the same things, using the same label. Everything is about consciousness and so on and so on. But long term, what I've discovered through my exploration, and which is very important, and that's why only if you are connected to God and to the source, and it is possible only through Jesus, but I needed to answer myself why it is possible only through this way and not any other way. And it takes me more than 2 years. I have to some extent discovered it for myself in order to be able to explain it better why there is no other option. For the example, only maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, I realized why it's not impossible for the human being to exist without the existence of creator. I didn't know. I mean, I took it as a granted because I had some experience, I believed it and so on. And actually, I decided, because I had one guy that is trying to be spiritual and so on, and I've heard so much about this plant medicines and so on and so on. He said me, okay, let's, do you want to try LSD? So I tried one afternoon, and what I experienced was exactly what all these people were saying about. You experience the oneness, you experience action, but actually I realized that it is 100% delusion of the mind, because my body was feeling started to feel gasps, some problems in the mouth. I felt I was cold, and I said, well, something is wrong, because my mind is 100% in delusion. He feels bliss and so on. For the first time, I realized that there's different levels and layers of the emotions and the feelings, and it's so much delusion. And I was so conscious that what I'm experiencing is 100% not the truth that is out there. And yeah, then for the first time, I realized how delusional can the mind go. And it's very easy for me now to understand, of course, this type of people, because yes, I'm 100% sure that they experience it, but you can experience delusion as strongly as the real thing, and they're both real in a sense.
Yeah.
Lie and delusion is as real as what we can label as truth.
Right. No, 100%. That's one thing that I think that's everything's moving in this direction, which is very bad. And they get to the point where they say God is energy. So if God's energy and energy can't be destroyed, so I must be, meaning me, little me, I must be part of that, and I can control it and shift it how I want. No, that is not, God is not energy. That is not, there's energy in the world, yes, but that's only one aspect of God's power. That's not God alone. And I actually went down that bad path. I'm like, well, if you got the Shakti and you got these chakras and Kundalini and all this, well, okay, that's something I can use to get what I need to. But I realized I was fulfilling egoic agenda. And I mean egoic agenda, I mean the real thing, like ego. Like I was trying to build myself up. Like I can get this, and now then I can, do just find something for myself for the ego. And that's a bad path, because God will corner you every way. You're going to get to the point where you're done. It's how far you want to go down that road. How they call rock bottom. You can hit rock bottom in the personal development world and spirituality, all that as well. And that's where I hit. I mean, I tried everything, and I just got cornered and cornered and cornered.
Yeah, I mean, what I realized actually through this experience is how strong the ego wants to influence everything. And if my ego is let out of this body, and if it's allowed, it is going to embrace everything, and my ego is going to want to absorb everything in reality. And that's why actually we, the human beings, need God to exist, because this is what is balancing us to stay at the rightful place where we are, because otherwise we will so much go into distraction, because if this ego is not under order, because ego is neither good or bad, it has its stay, and the power of the ego is to be subdued under God's will. Only then the human being can thrive. But all these things, you need to experience them to realize them. It's not so easy. I mean, that's why I found out and I realized that actually the construct and the reality, and God created reality in such a way that only his view is long-term allowed to exist and to be rightfully expressed, let's say, for millions of years or thousands of years, and only this is supported and can thrive long-term. I don't know what is your feeling, but
yes. And I think that's the spiritual narcissism, I would call it now, is that we say with our ego that we want to become gods, and they take little contexts out of things. They don't put the whole context, the little snippets of the Bible or whatever, try to reframe it in a way that like we want to become God. That's why we don't say, I want to merge into everything. I want to be God. No, there's only one God. You're never, no matter what you go to, that's not going to happen. Yeah, you might have some temporal success. You might whatever. And it's a big market. It's a market. It is. And a lot of things are marketed with that. But it leads to a crash. It's definitely going to lead to a crash the further you go into that. Now, it's not saying you can't pick up nuggets of everything. Like you can learn from anything. It's just when you take it, fully absorb it, it leads to bad roads. And from personal experience, I can tell you that. I mean, like even the point I had 4 suicide attempts. So that's how far it actually got to with me. So I know what that leads to. I'm sorry.
But actually it created you started to go into self-blame and you found that you're not worthy, or what exactly is your path that brought you to a place where you decided to actually seek for the existence of the real God? How it happened with you?
Sure, absolutely. Because I always looking for the answer, always truth. Like I remember, like the first book I read actually when I was 5 years old. I was walking down the road and they had this camp. They were doing their cooking burgers and all that stuff, and they were had the New Testament. They were Christian. I was like, oh, these people are nice. So I read the New Testament. That's my very first book I ever read. And I was like, man, this actually resonated with me. And I don't know why I went away from it. I guess because like we're in the family I grew up in. My mom was raised Catholic, but she was very anti-Catholic because she was forced to do it. It was forced. You can't really force somebody to do religion because it's going to backfire. And so I was really, but I've always been answer, always spiritual, like read the Tao Te Ching, however you pronounce that. All kind of spiritual books, like tons. I probably read 200 spiritual books. I always had this concept that there's a truth out there, like truth with a capital T, and I'm going to find it. But the thing is, as I was doing that and falling down that road, I was like, I started saying, this is all nonsense. Like, this is all philosophical. This ain't real. It's not scientific. So I put that away. Like, actually, I would say, into my 20s and 30s, I was like totally atheist. I said, this is crap. And actually, I'm like, well, the answer might be transhumanism. Like, why can't we just implant stuff on ourselves and chips and then we can just elevate? That's the ego again, saying I can just elevate myself and then I can get all this knowledge and I can get this truth. So I went down that path for a long time. And that led me to the point where suicide. And I was like, of course, I'm still here, so obviously I wasn't successful. But and that's like, well, this definitely isn't the truth. So let me go back into this. And I started hearing about these chakras, and I got into all the stuff, the Shakti and Shiva, and I'm like, oh, this makes sense. Yeah, there's energy, and then there's the frame of it that holding everything together. I'm like, oh, this really makes sense. And I can be part of God. I'm like, wow, this is wonderful. This is about 5 years ago when I started getting into that. And I was hardcore into that. That's everything I listened to. Eckhart Tolle, Muji, all these. I mean, Adishanti, all of it. I'm like, yeah, these guys have the answer because it felt good. It felt good. That doesn't mean it was good. And actually, I was going through that, and I would meditate like for like hour, 2 hours a day, and I'm like, man, I feel good when I do this. But it led me to emptiness. I got to the end, I'm like, well, I have this, and they promised this, but I'm not having this. So there's got to be something else. And like I said, that actually led me to depression. I mean, severe like depression with this. And I was just nothing. I mean, it was just, I had nowhere to turn at all. And I said, God, if you are real, show me the absolute truth. I can't figure it out myself. I cannot do it. You have to show me.
Actually, you made something like a sincere prayer from your heart, or?
Yeah. I said 100%. I said, you show me the truth. I can't figure it out. I've tried my ways. My ways aren't working. I have nowhere else to go.
Mm-hmm.
That led me to Christ. So that's when but I was already baptized before. Like I experimented with Islam, Christianity, all that. I was trying to just find the answer, but just never felt grounded. I never felt like this was something that was real and true. And I exhausted every possibility. I mean, every possibility I've exhausted. I mean, to a point of like physical, like I can't even explain it. But that's what led me to this, and and very painful. But I'm glad I'm where I'm at now. So.
But did you discover it yourself, or did you participate with some people? How did you?
Well, sure. I would say myself, because I actually got to tell me the truth, and actually, what happened to me, which I was kind of. Now I look back on it, I still think it has to be the case. It has to be. I was actually, when I said that, I was literally stuck to the ground. I could not move, literally, for like 5 minutes straight. And I felt like waves of energy just crashing down on me. Just like, poof, like I would call it unconditional love. I had no other way to say what it was. And that led me to, I'm like, well, this is it. Yeah. And then, and then for some reason, it just said, this is to go. I didn't like voices talking to me or nothing like that. I just felt a strong urge to go back to Christ. Like it was just like this. I just started buying the books, whatever. It just came to me. I wouldn't say like God spoke to me and like tell me, no, this is what you're going to do exactly. I don't think God works like that. God works through divine providence. So at least in my experience, like God doesn't like talk to me and say this is what to do, but just kept pushing me in that direction. And I said, your will, not my will. I can't. Whatever I'm doing doesn't work, obviously. It can't. So that's where led me to this, and that's where I'm at now. So.
And actually now, when you read the Bible, and do you understand it more? Does it make more sense?
It definitely does. I can't say that I love the Old Testament so much because like this one begot this one, whatever, and I'm like a little bit of history, but the New Testament definitely 1,000. I won't say 1,000, but I mean for the most part, yeah, I definitely understand it, and I understand the context of it. Except going through those experiences, I realized what they were really saying, like really what spirit is. Like there's one Holy Spirit. There's not many. There's one, and there's one way to salvation. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. And you only go to the Father through the Son. That's it. I kept thinking, I was seeing these New Age stuff like Course in Miracles would be like, oh, we're all the Son of God. We're all this. We're all one concept. I kind of bought into that. Now I know that's not the case. We're a creature. He is the creator. We're not on the same level. He can live without the creature, but because he's the creator. So yeah, but definitely a lot of things that more make sense to me. Even religion, like I was like religion. That is no. You have to have your own personal, which still you do. You have a personal relationship with Christ, but there's also a stuff in religion that makes definitely more sense now than then.
I mean, because I listened a lot to the Bible with my headphones, maybe 2, 3, 4 hours, different books, the New Testament. Because I'm trying to really understand what is beyond the words, and to be able to in such a way deconstruct it that I can really speak very strongly, even with this type of people that are saying, okay, the law of attraction or this or that, or beliefs, or what exactly is belief, and what is this or what is that. And I listen a lot to the different things. And of course, some people think that the Bible is 100% not literal. Some people think that the Bible is only literal. Some people think that it's only allegorical. Some people think that it is something that is created from some other people that are very clever, and it is made in order to program people or whatever. But the important thing is when you extract the information and when you put it into your personal life, is it working for you? Is it empowering you? Is it bringing you into the right way of living through your experience? And of course, this is important for me because, for example, a lot of things in the personal development are extracted from the Bible, and I listened sometime to actaully from time to time to see how he's describing some of the things. It so much looks like biblical, and there's a lot of differences, but of course we are to long-term establish, every one of us, our own discernments and understand. And I mean, once you choose what is your core belief and perception about reality, it is a personal experience for everyone. I mean, I cannot convince some of my friends if they decide to be in a place where they think that everything works. Let them experience it for themselves. I cannot say anything. Even I have people that were Christians very strongly, like you are now, really into it, and later on they said, oh, Muji is so great, the other is so great. So people are all the time able and possible to move into different directions. But for me, what was very important is to dive and to understand why exactly what I have embraced as my core values and beliefs, why it is so important for me and actually for everyone around me. And it is much more easy now to explain. For example, I never meditated, and I cannot meditate the way some of the people are doing it. I don't like guided meditations personally because I'm quite mature to be able to speak and to express myself to my creator. I don't need some guided things to tell me how to express myself or to do affirmations. I mean, I'm quite knowledgeable to do everything myself. And for me, it was very important to long-term understand the power of intent, because a lot of people are strongly involved into trying to manifest things.
Mm-hmm.
I also believe that because God and Jesus are encouraging us to pray, so long-term, we as human beings are created to manifest, but actually with the alignment of God, we are able only to manifest what is His will. So actually we need to subdue our intent under His intent, because in the universe, it's allowed long-term only His will to be revealed and to exist. Of course, when a human being or a being is resisting, it can still, to some extent, is allowed to express, I mean, the so-called sinful nature or whatever is against God. It's also allowed, because we see that in the world there are a lot of things that usually are not so liked.
Yeah.
So this is the free will. I mean, there is a big power in the human being. There is a big potential, but it is up to every human being to decide if he is going to align his strong inside essence with the will of God and to create something beautiful and beneficial for humanity, or long-term he can have nice desires, but he's creating things that are a little bit devastation for him and for the others, of course, long-term.
Right. So that's one thing that we do have the power. We can accept or reject. We do have that power. We were given that power by God. They gave us that to do that, and it leads us astray. And the one thing that's really hit the nail on the hammer to me with the New Age spirituality, that's what I would label it as, is everything's one. Well, if everything's one, law of attraction, who in the heck am I going to attract from? And that's where it just broke down for me completely. If you're telling me there's one. So there'd be one will, which there kind of is one will. If you want to go further, there is, but we have our own limited will. We have a little bit of will we can do. But that's where it kind of broke down for me. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back. I was like, yeah, after I heard that, I'm like, all this, and that's, you can't do that. And we do have a certain life path that God set out for us. We can either go along with that, and it'll get more painful, as I know for an absolute fact. The more you don't follow that, and you know what it is. We have conscious, and you have something within you that knows what it is. You don't need the 10 commandments to tell you this or whatever. You know inside of you, unless you're like a psychopath. But thankfully, that's a minority, but that they do exist. So that's where I think that we fall into their thing. And then it's weird because more people become, I call spiritual narcissists. Like they're into this and they're saying, oh, I'm trying to help humanity and raise a consciousness, but they'll walk past somebody on the street that's suffering. I don't see that. That's negativity. I can't have negativity in my life. I can't see that.
And he is low consciousness, so it's not of our interest.
Right. So as bad as one thing about India that threw me off too is going into that. I know some people they saw people are walking down the street, walking past people. And they're like, I can't see that. I'm raised consciousness. I can't see that. That's negative. It's like what?
Ignoring a lot of parts of the reality.
Yeah. So, but if you're one, wouldn't you also want to take care of that one? Because that's part of you. If you really believe that one is part of you, so their suffering is your suffering. So, I mean, that's one thing that really sort of turned me off. And the more I saw that, it's like, well, you're saying this, but you're not living it. You're not. What is the biggest commandment in the Bible? Love God with all your heart and your mind and your soul. Also love your neighbor as yourself, which is God's children. So if you're not doing that, how can you say that you're expanding consciousness, whatever? That's, to me, that's
but 80 to 90% of the human beings are going to say to you that they're doing it because they have the choice to choose who are their neighbors.
Well, I disagree with that. I mean, to a certain point, but I was to say that when Jesus comes to your house, he comes in every house. He doesn't just come in one house. He's bringing everybody with him, and there's one in every house. So one Lord, and so that's where that's.
And did you embrace this concept of reincarnation before or not?
Well, actually, I don't even embrace reincarnation anymore. I used to. I used to say reincarnation. I believe that's like we'll be, as a Christian view is, we die, our soul is separated from our body, we get judged, and we go to heaven or hell. And if we need to, in the middle, to get purified, the purgatory, we go through a series. But it's not like it's you're in a time. You're because God is outside of space and time. That's why they're like, well, people are like, heaven's eternal. What the heck? I couldn't even conceptualize that because it's outside of space and time. So, but yeah, I used to believe in reincarnation, and it's all that, and so I don't believe in that now.
But did you make regressions? I have one colleague of mine. We are a pharmaceutical company, and he went to make regression, and they told him, well, once upon a time you were in India and you were dealing with medicine plant. And I said, of course, I could tell it to you even without going to regression.
Sorry, I just have to laugh at that because, like you said, the imagination. Our imagination is very it's active. It can come up with anything. It doesn't make it true. I mean, that's is imagined. That's why I said, like you said, if this is actually working for people, the majority of people that are going through this should be bearing the fruit of that. Jesus said, "You will be known by your fruit." So if the tree is bad, it's going to have barren fruit. And so, and you see, like the majority, I would think of a pyramid scheme. You're kicking up to the top. There's a few people that are doing very well. They are. That's the ones you hear about, but the rest are not. So if this was true, and what we're saying, then everybody should be benefiting from this. And then they're going to say, well, you're just not putting enough there. You're not going to work. You're not following it. So they put the onus back on you. It's not working because of you. Not that our system's broken. It's because of you. And that's another thing really distasteful about the personal development, and I call it New Age spirituality world, that really turns me off personally.
Yeah, but I mean, it depends how you turn it, because anyhow, everyone is responsible for his own personal life and experience. And then when you embrace something that is delusional, or then who is to be blamed? Of course, the person who embraced it, not the one who said
that is true.
So always the responsibility is to the person that embraces the concepts or whatever. So that's why for me it's very important, every person on every step, whatever it takes, it doesn't matter if he decides to take Christianity or to take whatever he decides to take, validation on every step. Is it working in reality? Can you validate it? To what extent can you validate it? Only to this extent you can accept. And still, because of the delusion, for example, all these people that are downloading from the so-called quantum or from spirits or whatever, is it true when they write all their books? Yes, it's true. Is it reality, or is it a delusion? Is it half-truth or whatever? I mean, who can say the exact, who can put the exact label? But the most important thing is, are you long-term become a functional being in this reality, or are you becoming a dysfunctional? Because as this lady that I watched in the YouTube, she wrote so many books or whatever, but if you become a dysfunctional being, what is happening?
Right. Absolutely. And I agree with you're saying to a certain extent. Like as human, we also have a nature that we are, and we want to trust experts because we can't figure out everything that is out there. So if we see somebody, an expert, saying, I'm an expert into this, naturally, we are hardwired to, because we grew up in tribes and we had elders and all that. So we would take that as fact. So yes, the person has a personal responsibility to that, but also that person misleading them, that's very having deceitful marketing and saying, I have the answer and this works and this is guaranteed to work for you. Like I have the people in this coaching program say, you do this, you'll get clients. Like saying coaching, well, no, that doesn't work for anybody. And I see 80% of people do not. So yes, they do have a responsibility with that as well. But it's also like we defer to experts, which I think that's twisted in both ways. So that's something that's I think people need to be cautious of. There is some good to that. I'm not saying that all of it's bad across the board, but that's when you start getting into it keeps going into this certain area. It keeps going in one direction, like law of attraction.
So maybe the long term is people not to seek for experts, but to seek for examples. Maybe this is much more better
Yes,
solution
yes,
long
yes.
term.
For certain things, like of course, if you break your arm or something, the doctor, you're going to trust the doctor. But yeah, there's a lot of things that is true. By the example, like we said before, by the fruit you will know. And that's why. But and then also the way that they achieve something doesn't mean it's going to work for you. They have their own their life path. They have their own personality, makeup, whatever. And this because it works for them does not mean it's going to work for you. And I think it's where we get in this cookie cutters. Like, well, this is our program. You fit this program. So that's why I do think coaching is positive to a very good extent because you can individualize it. If you're doing one-on-one coaching, if you're really getting into that, I don't have a problem with that because you're actually working one-on-one and tailored to the person. But of course, it's whatever their goals they're going for is what you have to. That's really up to the person. So that's their own.
But why, according to you, there are so many Christians that are involved into personal development and coaching?
My thing with that is that that's interesting. I think most Christians don't actually know their faith. They really don't know. They were grown up and they went to church and this. And most Christians, if you ask them basic questions, they would not understand it. And they don't understand the, as you said, the underneath of it. They surface level and they think, oh, all religion is rules and regulations, and I got to do this or whatever. So I'm not interested in that. No, I don't want to do that, which I understand. If it was just rules and regulations, do or do not, and there's the sky god up there hammering me down every day, bam, I don't, and of course, why? And that's where they have the label of that. But how many people in life don't conform or don't live up to their label? And I don't want to hope I don't offend somebody that's going to go with this. There's a lot of evangelicals that have Donald Trump right in their Bible. He's about the most immoral, unchristian man in the world. So tell me that. I mean, if you want to talk about paradox or hypocrisy, whatever you want to call it. But that's
and this is what I heard. One guy who was a Christian before, now he's into some healings and 20, 30 levels of different heavens or realities or whatever. And he said, I didn't like Christianity because everything that they were saying, they were doing nothing. They couldn't express anything in their real life from what they're saying about.
Yes, 100%. And that is there. I definitely can't sweep down a rug is there. And I say the one thing that I would refute with that is that we're responsible for our own soul. We can't say we were led astray by this person or that. Like, comes back to responsibility. You can ask God, show me the truth. If you ask God sincerely and not try to put your answer in there, you will get the answer. Now, whether that's free, I probably don't know what the answer is. That's like, say, for me, I can't speak for anybody else, obviously. But if you sincerely ask that question, I'm not talking about expecting the answer, trying to put your own spin on it, what you want, you will get that answer. And then you will know the truth, the way to go. You will be guided along the way. We're here to do God's will. And if you ask God, you will get led on that path. You have your own free will. You can choose it or not, but yeah.
And actually, you've been into strongly involving into Christianity only for the last month?
I'd say probably, well, I would say probably about 2 months now. Strongly into that, but I'm not unfamiliar with it. I was like baptized Lutheran. I've read the New Testament, a lot of Christian literature, but I didn't sincerely ask God. I really didn't. I was looking at the surface level. I'm like, I can find the answer. I can peel through this. I never really did that. It was more going through the motions. And then I fell in the same way. I'm like, I'm looking at hypocrisy. I'm like, this is BS. This is hypocrisy. And I got turned off. I'm very analytical, like you said, very reason driven, very left brain. Like I have to know what this is. And so that's what led me to that path. So I kept dabbling in it, but I actually got squeezed so bad. Like I can't even describe it other than I was like I had nowhere to turn, nothing. I tried every avenue of my own. And I got led to this, and then God led me to this, and that's where I'm at. And I don't see this changing because it's so grounded. Like I just feel at peace. The first time in my life that I felt at peace. None of that stuff gave me peace. It gave me an experience. I might have a meditation for 2 minutes. Ooh, then I'm back in the misery. Yeah, and I'm chasing that meditation again. I'm like, oh, I want that 2 minutes. I want that all the time. But I wasn't finding it.
Chasing after experiences, chasing after feelings, and so on and so on.
Yeah.
And do you use some spiritual practices now?
I use prayer, and I do have a meditation practice, but it's really not guided by any means, but it's not long. Like it's about 2 minutes. Because the main point is people think that, and I thought this, the more I sit in meditation, I'm going to have this or whatever. But that's like trying to get a download from God or something like that. It's not going to work. The main thing in meditation is to slow your mind down for like 20 seconds, basically. If you can get to that, you've accomplished your goal.
Mm.
And the more you search for that, like the more you try to put into that, that's actually, now I'm learning, that's more of spirit leading you away from God. So you're thinking, I'm chasing this, I'm chasing this. Instead of praying to God, instead of talking to God, went into this avenue. And it's like, well, you can have the peace of God, the peace that passes all understanding by going to God, or I can search and I can grind for this temporary peace, which is more fruitful. I mean, if you have that experience like I have, it's definitely more fruitful to go to God and get this peace of God.
And do you read the Bible or do you listen to
Yes,
it?
I read it.
Read it.
And then also to read like interpretations of it. Like I'm very good. Like I have a Bible. Like I have my new Catholic Bible. That's the one I like. And then I also interpretations and actually have commentaries on it that I go through as well. But then I also see what they're saying and then match it up with the Bible. And if it matches, which it all does. So if you really know the underneath, like I said, there's the surface and then there's the underneath. I don't want to go too far into that because sometimes when you go to there, you're like, well, then back to the spirit and all this again.
Yeah, I mean, for more than maybe the first 10 years, I was very strongly into understanding and reading everything about what the Bible is saying. Then maybe the last 10 years, I'm 100% de-learning from everything that other people are saying. And now I'm just using only reading the Bible and letting it to reveal itself to me and to see the understanding as it's written there. I'm not anymore listening to other people's interpretations. So from some time to time, I'm just listening to different discussions just to know what people are arguing about. But long term, I'm listening a lot, especially in the evenings. Instead of affirmations and things like this, I just go with my headphones and I have on my phone one thing which is very nice because it's made with some not like meditation, but it is like storytelling. Everything is with different voices and so on and so on. And it is called the word
Okay.
of promise.
I see it there. Yeah.
It costs something like $50, but it is narrated with different people and it is made very nicely with a lot of music inside, and you can just absorb it with everything that you are. And it's for me, it's very interesting because I can feel the exact experience that was in the moment when, for example, the words were said or different things. And sometimes I can listen for 5-6 hours. Just listening and listening. And when you go into this level, then you go under the words, under the labels, and you start feeling sometimes the things that are said on a much more deeper level. And it's very easy then, because actually in reality there are a lot of things that this type of people that are in the personal development or in the last 200-300 years that are discovering things, they extracted a lot of things from the Bible. And of course, then because of the different type of intention, it is not working, but a lot of things are extracted which they can work wrongly. But if you deep dive, you can see what is the real reality behind all of this. And now what I'm very interested about is what is actually behind the surface, what is beyond the scene. And I never believed in the law of attraction in the sense that it is made, because if you see, it is based on fear. Because I'm afraid from the negative, I'm trying to attract something which is called positive. And when I'm designing my values, my biggest value in life is the fear of God. So actually I'm attracting fear.
Yeah.
I want more fear, but the fear of the creator, because only then I'm okay with fear. I'm not against fear.
Right.
But if I'm afraid from the one who created everything, then I become more alert about seeking. Wow, am I misleading myself? Am I thinking that I'm something more than what I am? Do I understand? Am I here? Do I need to move more? And you go into a totally different state. And I don't know why, but I cannot find something much more. Of course, a lot of people are speaking about the unconditional love. According to me, basically, long-term love is always conditional, and it is based on covenants and so on and so on. But people think that it is unconditional in a sense that because love cannot exist without being placed under order.
Mhm.
So in reality, nothing is unconditional. Everything is put in its place, and only then it can 100% explode and be whatever it is. I have made one webinar ruling in a connected reality, where for the first time I realized what is the meaning of love, because love is actually the bonding and the connecting between the beings and their creator. And it is like the glue that is connecting everything, but it cannot be in a sense unconditional. And what exactly? Because with the declaring of the label that you love, in the same time you need to say what exactly you hate. Nothing is only one-edged. Everything is a two-edged thing. When you say God created, with creation there is also destruction. You need to understand with the beginning there is an end, and so on and so on. So of course it's part of this fight between duality, oneness, and so on. But I'm very strongly for duality, because we cannot experience this reality without good and evil. We cannot experience this reality without the duality. And of course, long term, if we can discuss where one thing, when everything is finished and when we are in the final end of the ends of the all the ends, what is going to be? We will be only good and evil is going to cease to exist, or will everything exist but in its order? There will be evil in the so-called hell, there will be good in the so-called heaven, but everything will just sit in its layers, and nothing will stop to exist, but actually all the beings are going to stay in the rightful place based on what they have chosen, of course, through the experiences, in the wholeness of everything. But we cannot say, no, one day only this will exist and everything else will disappear.
Right. Yeah, I would call that also ego as well, because our finite mind tries to say this is the way it's going to be. Only God knows that. We have concepts of it. We kind of get an idea that's it, and the only unconditional love is from God itself. But God gave us the choice. Like we have free will.
Yeah, but it's still not unconditional, because in order God to create, he needed to predict the destruction. And in order to create and destruction, it will always be a loop: creation, destruction, creation, destruction. So he needed to provide a savior, a solution to break the loop of creation, destruction through the destruction of himself, in order to break this loop and to create real long-term creation through the breaking of this loop. Because immediately, by the law of balance, when you create, you need to predict the destruction. And when, let's say, human being was created, we think, oh, it's so beautiful, why the human being sinned and so on, and it went into this path and sinful and so on. Actually, according to me, we the human beings are still not finished. We are still in the process. We are work in progress, and only when everything finished, we will become what we are long-term created to be. Nobody still know what exactly we are going to be once we are transformed or ascended or whatever. And nothing starts with us entering here in this realm, and nothing will end with us living this realm only. But of course, it is a very strongly metaphysical or whatever you can say. But when we start going up in these 3 levels of wisdom, because the human wisdom is one part, the demonic wisdom is the second part, where they understand the construct, they understand how maybe things are working, energies. I cannot say that they don't understand. I cannot say that the demons or devils or Satan is not intelligent. These are very intelligent and high conscious being.
Right.
If somebody knows more about God, it's not possible we to know as much as they know. But long-term, God's wisdom is something that is beyond the creation. And this is something from this type of perspective, this is totally different. And it can come only through the Christ and through the Holy Spirit. Of course, then there is a lot of discussion, how exactly and how we know, how we validate what exactly is the so-called Holy Spirit, which means the sacred, the only one. Nothing can compare to it. It's like nothing else. And there are so many different discussions about this, and everything in reality is coming little by little into order only when you align with the truth. Otherwise, you cannot understand reality. It's total misconception.
Right. Yes. And we also have to have God's grace to actually reveal that to us. We're finite. We are a creature. We're not going to, there's no way we can conceptualize this. We can make our imagination up. But they are, and you said that demons, they're more intelligent than us. That's why some people get fooled by them, because they don't actually have a body. They're disembodied. So they can travel around and they can actually take on appearances as well. It's not true appearances, but they can do that. And some people can be deceived by that. They're thinking spirit and they're falling into this. That's why I say spirituality with spirituality. But I wanted to get back to what you were saying about love. What I'm saying that God gives unconditional love is he gave us the choice to choose him or not. And what our love is, the only way we can understand this is love is willing the good of the other, period. Not what I can get out of that, just purely because of what I can do for the good of the other. That's what love actually means, charity, which means, and that's why when people say, I'm a one conditional love, one love, but I'm gonna walk past that guy on the street that's homeless. I have the money in my pocket, but I'm gonna walk past him. But unconditional love. So.
And do you believe in this concept where you need to love yourself and all this? There are some people that are very strongly into this loving themselves. For me personally, it has never been an issue because I never had a problem with this. Because maybe very early I became a Christian, so I understand the love of God. So I never had a question about my love, because I knew that his love of me is enough to understand that I don't need to love anymore. Or if the creator loves me, what more can I ask?
Yeah, if you get into self-love, you're gonna get some dark spaces. Now, it's not obviously that you should abuse yourself or mortify yourself all the time. Now, that would be unrealistic. I mean, you obviously have a nature that you want to do that, but when you go down to those ways, you get a dark path. So you open yourself up to it, because evil spirits, demons will say, "Okay, you're self-love." Then self-love comes into yourself. It's funny, in Dante's Inferno, Satan is down in hell and cold away by himself. He's just sucked into himself. Not that he's in fire. He's disconnected from everything, and he made a God unto himself. And we will never be fulfilled until we actually are connected with God through Jesus Christ. So that's where when you get self-love, to a certain degree, it's okay. But you start going to some dark places when you only focus on this, like a self-love, so don't care about the rest of the world, just what I want for me, whatever. So at variance of that, yes, but that's really not where you want to go.
Yeah,
I guess you have to define that a little further for me, but overall that can lead into very dark spaces.
Yeah. And of course, there are a lot of layers and levels, and it depends on what type of level is a person. And I mean, that is very important, because that's why, according to me, we cannot 100% judge if something is effective or non-effective or beneficial, because to some extent, for some period of life, some things are beneficial for people.
Right.
Then the benefit today can be my distraction tomorrow. But This is another topic.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. So yeah. That's why really what's when you ask God, you're going to get the right answer. Sincerely, like I said, you're going to get the right answer. You can't fail. Like I said, you come in your own agenda and the self-love, and I want God to give me this answer, then yeah, you have somebody come in there, they'll give you an answer. It's going to lead you to a path and that you don't want to go down, in my experience. If it works for other people, I really can't speak for them, but this is what's true for me. And this is, this is the only thing that ever gave me peace. That's all I can really say with that.
So actually now from your perspective, you are moving to different experiences much more not consciously, but with alertness and with discernment. How are you a little bit not afraid, but how to say, more alert when you're experiencing things and practice?
Yeah, I want to be careful how I word that, because you get an awareness and expanded awareness and all that, and that's can go back into everything kind of leads to one area, seems like, if you actually break it down. But I would say that I have more, definitely discernment. I would say when you go to the Holy Spirit, you get certain gifts, and discernment is one of them. That's what led me to a lot of the stuff. Like, I would buy into these promises that were given to me. I would be like, oh, okay, this is working for these people. So that you become, when you get into that, and as by spirits, that you can gullible. You come into things, you're like, you okay, this guy's an expert, so I'm going to go along with that. And he's like the best known one, like Tony Robbins, which I have a lot of issues with him personally, but I think he definitely has the cookie cutter approach, and he has the rah, rah, rah. And for most people, I've not seen that to work. I'm not saying for some people it hasn't, but it's the minority, not the majority. You always want to look at, is it the majority that's getting it or the minority? So I've definitely had more discernment in my life, and I'm noticing things as well that I don't want to. I always had this urge to, like, I felt I'd never fit in. So now I felt like I had this urge, I want to fit in. I want to people please. I want to, because I don't fit in. And I notice that less and less I don't have that urge. I'm like, I don't want to be like that. I can see more of like behavior. I mean, that's what you come by. And I'm seeing that. I'm like, I don't want to be like that. I don't. So that's the gift that's coming to the Holy Spirit for me now. That's the most pronounced gift that I can say. And then also to let things go. Not everything, just a certain degree of detachment more than I had before. I'm not saying I'm 100% there by any means. I'm fallible. I'm human. I'm not. I'm on the potter's wheel, as you say. God's still forming me. So, but I wanted to go back on something you were saying about. So you were listening to the stuff on there. That's very good, because that's how it was passed on in Jesus' time. There weren't written word. It was all through oratory. It was all through stories. That's how Jesus, the sermons and all that, is how he preached that. So
yeah,
because very beneficial.
Faith comes from hearing.
Yes.
And hearing of the word of God. So it's not from reading, but from hearing. And I know a lot of people like to read. I also like to read, but when I read, it becomes very slow. When I hear, it becomes like a song for me. And I just, when you listen a song, you go into the feeling, and after some time, the words are becoming something much more than just the words.
Right.
It's, yeah, I mean, I like it. For me, it works. I don't know, everybody can test different things, but I like it for myself, of course. And about the Holy Spirit, about the baptism in the Holy Spirit, I have a lot of personal experience how I'm doing it. I like personally to speak in tongues because it gives me a very powerful way to identify my mind, because then I go much more easier into this meditational state that these people are trying to do by taking away their thoughts. Because when I'm speaking in tongues, for example, my mind does not give fruit, as it's written in the Bible. So it helps me a lot, especially when I'm distracted and things like this. I also like to be quiet. I mean, usually when I do my practices, I can stay up to 2 hours and even more into a presence, into understanding, into state like elevated, and just being in this presence and understanding more. But I'm not seeking any more experience, because I had so many experiences in my life. I cannot even discern how many of them were really real. And I mean, it's very hard to validate, because it's not important just to have experiences, but later on how you are implementing them in your daily activity. And what I realized, actually, what was missing before in my faith, and what actually personal development, maybe it's wrongly trying to implement, it doesn't have the power. But then, by me being a Christian, it helps me to start integrating my spirituality in my daily experience. And this really changed everything for me, because before this I thought my daily experience, my work, whatever I'm doing is one thing, and then God is only for the church or for my private time, and I was separating my spirituality from my daily experience. And actually, this is also dysfunctional.
Yes.
And when we merge who we are with our expression, then things really start to happen, at least for me. And that's why now I'm posting my daily videos, and I'm expressing how I'm working in my reality, what I'm doing. I don't know if you have watched some of the videos, but maybe you can like some of them. My life is, my wife, for example, is, because we are both Christians, and he's telling from time to time, why don't you speak more about and label all the things with Jesus or whatever? But I still prefer to stay in the concept of reality and not put the different labels, because a lot of people, of course, they need to come to a special place where they understand that they have the needs. And once they decide that they want to look in reality through the lens of Christianity, then I can 100% review what this can do for them also. Because anyhow, I mean, everything else is just a teaser. Yes, you can go in this as, yes, you can try this, but it's not possible to work, because for me, long term, the important thing is the human being to be aligned with God. And in order to be done, we need to have the mind, the heart, the guts, and the care aligned together. This is a concept from these Masonic teachings and so on. But it really helped me to understand how we are to put everything from ourselves with the alignment of God, in order to produce in reality real expression of who we are with the power of God and so on. Otherwise, it's impossible. If you just try to do something without God, it's impossible. If you try to do something of yourself on the expense of God, it's again not possible.
Right.
And so on and so on, because I've tried so many things in my life, and there were times when I was really afraid to ask from God, because I don't want to make him feel uncomfortable when something is not happening, and to say, okay, you see, I asked, it doesn't happen, so now you feel maybe uncomfortable about it. So it's funny, but this was playful. When I was much more younger, I didn't want to embarrass God with asking him things, and to put him into perspective that he's not able to deliver. But of course, he's always able. The only thing is that because the reason for in our integration and in our relationship is long-term, to understand more about who he is, because you see what happened with sin and what disintegrated man from God is his desire to know good and evil. Mm-hmm. And long-term, eternal life is to know Christ and the Father who sent him. So one direction is man to turn away from God and to start searching from good and evil, and to start consuming life and exploiting life. And the other way is to turn his eyes back to the Creator, to understand the Creator, and based on this alignment, to start producing actually life. And I like a lot this allegory, not allegory, but what is written in Corinthians 2nd chapter, where actually the first Adam was a living being, So actually, we were created in the beginning to experience life, to gather awareness, to consume it. But the second Adam became a life-giving spirit. So our long-term tendency is to be transformed into participating, into giving away life to flow out of us and to be given for everyone else. So it's totally different perspective from a consumption to a giving being.
Yeah, and that's something that would go into the concept of going from chaos into order. That's one thing that we are here to do as well. I don't go too far into that, but that's for the general overview with that. And it's funny that you said that about your to go before God and have hesitation. God knows everything anyway. But it's funny that the allegory you see is like when he ate the apple, it's an allegory. It's not, we don't know 100% true, whatever. They turned away from God and covered themselves. They tried to hide themselves from God. That's what they became. They became, I can't go to God with this. I can't do this. God wouldn't do anything about this. Now, of course, God has a greater will. If it's not good for you and good for other people, God's not going to give that to you. And that's one thing I think with the personal development world, they push forward, try to force us. Like, this is my agenda. This is what I want. Now, if it's not good for you or that for the people you interact with, then God's not going to give that to you. He might give you something even better or something better for you in the long run. And I think that's something we're afraid to. We can never be a burden to God. I mean, we cannot. Like say, I'm not a parent, but if I had a child and they came to me and said, I want some bread, I'm not going to give them a stone. That's, I mean, God is a loving father. So that's one thing that goes with that. So that's one thing that I think people are afraid to bring to God, but God knows it anyway. He knows your heart. He knows your desires. He knows everything. That's what is omnipresent, omnipotent, all that. That is true. So that's where I think it's a lot of conflict with that, is because it's like my will versus God's will. And that was what became. He said, you have good and evil, and then it becomes my will. Like, it's my will or God's will. Now, of course, we have a purpose here to fulfill, but we have a greater purpose. We're pilgrims here, like I said before. We have that we're not designed to have everything we want here. This is not the end game. So that's one thing. We don't want to get too caught up into that. Now, of course, do your best and help people and all that. That's what we should do more of. And I think if we did that more people would go to Christ. If we actually lived that, if we actually became, one of the biggest things I say to Christ is, make me like you. I will never be that, obviously, because he's God. So I can never become that. But I say, make me like you, which that's, of course, our egoic agenda and conscious mind is not going to like that. It's going to be like, no, no. Because the only thing the unconscious mind cares about is survival. That's it. You survived it, it's good. If you ate 100 cakes, you survived it, good. It doesn't care whatever. It doesn't care about happiness. It doesn't care about anything. So that's one thing that I know I went on a tangent there a little bit, but that's where I think it's going back to the will thing is what I got into. It's like our will and God's will, and we have to meld them. So more surrender to his will. That's what we have to do.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, of course, the long-term part is that we need to be active in participation and because when I started exploring the personal development, I was moving and seeing how actually Jesus was living his life here and seeing, okay, let me see how he was doing personal development, for example, what he exactly did, what he exactly spoke to these people, why he spoke it this way, why he did this and that. And it started to make so much sense for me, a lot of the things, a lot of the concepts. And I was just looking how he's performing. And for example, when he was doing things, he was not after fulfilling his will. He never was after his will. Actually, if you look into the Gospels, you will never see the will of Jesus expressed. That's why he was able to say, if you have seen me, you have seen the Father, because I'm never going to express my will. I'm going to express only his will. So you don't need to see him, because everything that I'm expressing all the time is his will. So this is him.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's something that that's an ideal to go for. I don't know if we can ever reach that in our state, because obviously he was a God and from God. So, But yeah, that's 100%. And like, especially like, could you imagine God telling you to go to get crucified, get whipped with chains and all that? He went through that. He said, take this away from me. But God said, no, this is my will. You for to save humanity, you're going to go through this. Could you imagine one of us today going through that? I mean, the willfully.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine a lot of people in China or whatever, they are going through this.
Right.
And it is a normal part of the Christian life that anyhow, this is the so-called 100x movement that when this Grant Cardone and others are creating this 10x movement, I went into the Bible and I saw what is the 100x movement. You are going to receive 100 times houses and wife and everything good in your life, but with a lot of persecution and trouble. So
Yeah, I guess it
so
goes
it's a
down to
different lifestyle. It's not like
yeah,
what is shown on the TV and so on and so on.
yeah. I guess it's where you want to set your kingdom too. Do you want your kingdom here? But yeah, a lot of times, and it's funny they said that millionaires, they studied them and they conducted them. And they said 95% of them are miserable.
Mm.
Miserable. So you have that money, but you're miserable. So why would I pursue that? Because it's the society we live in, the culture. We try to set up our kingdom here. No, our kingdom or home is not here. Let's not say everybody should live miserable and abstract poverty, but that's not where we should set up our kingdom going for that. And that's something, what's the old saying, be careful what you wish for. Because you get that, you might not be what you thought it was. And I learned that. I didn't have the 100% success and all that stuff, but going down that path did not lead me to where I wanted to be. So that's one of the things I say, be careful of that.
Yeah, I mean, that's why long term I'm creating one more program called Beyond Success Reality, where the big core there is that we as human beings, God is creating for us to have excess, to have more than enough. And also long term, it's not necessary to have riches and to have more and more, but you can transmute the physical riches into non-physical assets. When he told, for example, to a person that was very rich and go and sell everything you have and follow me. Actually, he was not losing his wealth. He was transmuting and transforming his wealth into a spiritual wealth, into another type of wealth. So, for example, as there is a saying, the people that are saying that money cannot make them happy has not given away enough. It means, yes, money itself cannot make you happy, but with money, you can bring so much happiness to the world. I mean, Jesus was using money and they had money in their earthly thing that they were doing and they were giving away and so on and feeding hungry. This is not the problem. I mean, money as a thing, but they can be transformed into non-physical and really things that can strongly create a lot of beautiful assets that are non-physical. So I'm rich, I have a lot of money, I'm not against excess, and I have businesses, and I'm going to long-term have intention to have even more. But and this is what I don't like when I speak with people personally. Alex, tell me how much you want. I don't need money for myself. But if I have more, I can make much more people around me happy. So it's okay for me.
Right.
I mean, I'm not against money be around me in order to be just a steward of this money in order to create much more beautiful life for everything around me. But personally, I'm not consuming now more in a sense that I don't need to consume more than anybody else on this planet. Right. Yes, I have an excess, but I'm trying to use it as much as possible for the benefit of something that is outside of me.
Yes. I think that what the people conflate two different things. It's the love of money itself that is the root of all evil. I want to accumulate as much wealth as I can for myself. Now, you can obviously take money and use it for purposes, like you said, like you can give to the poor. You can, and I want to say more of the physical. That's a good thing too, to charities, actually, to give people life, because we have a physical life here as well. And that's where I think that a lot of people, they kind of mislay that. We are, of course, our kingdom ultimately is not here, but what I understand is that when we die, our body will be a resurrected body like Jesus. Like when you see Jesus, who actually have the wounds in his hand and all that, he actually had a physical presence, and he actually has, of course, it's a glorified body. It's different than what it is. But you will know, if you see Jesus, you'll see him like people saw him when he was here. So that's where I think a lot of times that they conflate those things too. But yeah, use your money for good purposes. Yeah, what's wrong with that?
Yeah, I mean, anyhow, we don't have anything, so it's not our money anyhow.
Right.
We are only stewards of things that are coming
Right.
to our responsibility, and so on and so on. So I mean, it doesn't matter, because anyhow, once we are leaving, we are not taking anything away, but of course we are leaving a big imprint here through our life. So it's important. That's why, I mean, for me, it's very important why in the Bible it's important, it's the deeds and everything that we are doing is going to be judged, and why it's important, because I was thinking about it a lot, because this is the only thing that is expressing the true us. We can fake our thoughts, we can fake our wordings, we can fake a lot of things, but because our real expressions are based long-term on who we are on a subconscious level, that's why we cannot fake it.
Right.
I mean, we can try to some extent when we are before people to show something different, but long-term it is revealed who we actually are anyhow.
Yeah, you cannot hide yourself. Your actions will eventually or seep through or something. We can't hide ourselves to who we are, and we can't hide where our greatest value is. I would say our greatest value. We can't hide that, because our actions will say that. Like, you want to find out what people do, where they spend their money, their time, and their energy. That'll tell you who they really are. Period. Like you said, service level, say I'm this or whatever. No, what you're actually doing, your actions, your behavior, that's how you know what person really is. Like, it goes back to the saying I say over and over again: you will know a tree by its fruit. What you are actually doing in the world, real world, because that's what we're here, that's how you'll be known. And so that's why a lot of things, that's why Christ is true, because every action, it's like you said, the more you research it, it's true. Everything is done it's there. So
yeah. So actually, now what are your long-term intentions about the coming months or the coming year? What are your plans and the postings and the way you are going to present yourself?
Yeah, I'm going to present myself what I am, but I still, honestly, I have a gnawing in back of my mind that I've suppressed. I have an urge to really help people, but I want to help people in a real way, not the BS, not the thing. And I want them to actually to reach fulfillment, is the best way I can say that, in a way that's to them. But I don't want to have the woo-woo and the false spirituality goes with that. So to me, what I need to do first is to deepen my faith further. I need to really get grounded with what I'm saying. And I don't, the biggest thing that really drives me nuts is hypocrisy. I never want to be a hypocrite. What I say I am is what I am, period. And so, but I want to actually be grounded in my faith more. I've studied a lot and all that, but I really need to get grounded more in my relationship with Christ. So I'm just going to be more focused on that. And once I'm in a level where I feel very comfortable with that, and I want to present a Christian help, really Christian, a way of doing it. I will really, that's who the people I want to work with. I really want to be open with that 100%. Like, it's going to be whatever I'm working with, that's kind of people that I really want to be drawn, because we need to lead more people to Christ. And when they see real examples of that, real people that are really living it, then that's going to be, they'll have them to explore that. Then they'll explore the relationship to Christ, and they'll go to that. Because I really don't want people to go to hell. I know people say that this is all energy, we don't go, but no, I really believe that there's a hell. And if you go, and if you don't do the right things, you will be judged. So I guess that's really but I want to get more grounded in that. But I have a lot of training in what I do, but I want to remove the new age and all that things that trappings with that leaves people on bad paths. I want to have it just really grounded and that's, so I want to avoid that, but I need to work out a little more things on my end as well to get to that point.
Okay, that's good. So yeah, we are almost 1 hour and 40 minutes.
Oh, I didn't know we're that long.
Yeah, so if you want, you can say something more about you, if people are interested in what you are doing, how they can reach you, and
Sure.
What are you doing? Yeah.
Yes. So I do have a website. It's called icmrightnow.com. And that's where people can get a hold of me. And I do coaching as well. The magnetic mind coaching, I have a 12-week program that I can take people with. I'm going to tweak it a little bit, but as the core of it is going to stay the same. And I really want to help people create a life that they love. I don't want to have empty fulfillment. Like, if you chase money, yeah, what are you going to get the end cause of that? Like you chase that rabbit hole, because the end, you're still unfulfilled. So what did that actually give you? So actually I have the 12-week program I take people through to actually know what their values are and to live their values, to actually do that. That's when we actually reach the fulfillment that we have. But so that's there. And then also through my Facebook page, obviously. And that's how you can reach me. And yeah, that's the way you can do that. And I come to you, I really want to help you. It's not something, I'm not trying to sell you anything. If we don't resonate, we don't resonate. Everybody's for everybody. And I definitely have the spiritual Christian perspective. That's part of it. It's not, it's what it is. So, but like I said, so many people are living lives of quiet desperation and they need God. They really do. That will fulfill them. And there's a process to get there. They'll get them there, but that's the only thing that's going to fill that hole. So that's what I have for that.
Okay. So thank you very much, and thank for all the viewers and the listeners and all of you that are going to listen in the YouTube, this Reality Talks with Alex. And every week we are presenting different people, different views of reality. As you saw today, we were expressing, both of us, the Christian perspective and how it's working for us. And thank you very much. And I'm now going to stop the recording, and you can listen us every Friday from 21 o'clock UK time.